Welcome to our first collective event, the Share, Sustain and Shape, which is always a bit of a mouthful. And it's for those working in community learning and development. And we're delighted that you're able to join us today for today's practice sharing workshop in getting to grips with evaluative writing. There is a programme of free online practitioner learning that has been organised by the regional professional networks across Scotland, and this will take place over 5 weeks in November and early December. This is week 2, and this is the South East and Central Consortium's offer this week. The details of the programme are on iDevelop, so if you want to check that out, have a look there. There are also keynote welcomes on iDevelop from the Scottish Government Minister, Jamie Hepburn, and Dr. Marian Allison from the Standards Council. So in your leisure, you can go and have a look at those. Very short, but quite informative. Please also note for today's session that it is being recorded, and that's so that we can share it with staff who are not able to make today and others who might benefit from seeing this, or just a refresher. We won't be recording in the breakout rooms, and if people are not happy to be, you can switch your camera off if you feel happier with the recording. The Getting to Grips with Evaluative Writing is brought to you today by, as I said, South East and Central Consortium, and also our Education Scotland colleagues. The session came about really because staff were being asked to write case studies and reports, and it was looking at how else to write those, rather than descriptively. So, looking at evaluative writing, what is it, and how to sort of break that down. Today's programme will be a mixture of input and Menti, so more interactive. So I hope you've got your second device or your smartphone or whatever to hand, and there will be breakout rooms. My name, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Diane Govenlock. I'm a Connected Community Manager in East Lothian Council, and I'm Chair of the South East and Central Consortium. The others who are involved today are Una. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, thanks, Diane. So I'm Una McGarry, also part of the South East Consortium. Una McGarry, I'm team leader for Community Learning and Development, not Community Education, Scottish Borders Council.
Thank you. Julie?
Hi, yeah, I'm Julie Beckett. I'm a CLD Development Officer with Education Scotland, and I'm part of the Forth Valley and West Lothian team.
Thank you, Julie. Jamie?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jamie Dungavel. I'm the CLD Education Officer for Education Scotland, and I'm also based in the Forth Valley and West Lothian Regional Improvement Team.
Thank you. And also Vince Moore was part of the small working group from Education Scotland, but he's unable to be with us today. Please continue to use the chat function to introduce yourself, and please use the chat function as we go along for comments and questions, and we'll try and keep an eye on that as the session progresses. And I'm going to pass you over to Julie.
Thank you, Diane. I'm just going to move over into our first Menti. So just like Diane was saying, Mentimeter, if you've never come across it before, it's an online engagement tool. So we'll be doing a couple of different activities throughout the session just to break it up and have some chat around the different activities. So if possible, you could use your second device to click on the QR code or to log into menti.com and use the code there. However, I'll also just pop the link in the chat there for those that might be easier if you're using a laptop to use the direct link online. So I'll just pop that in the chat as well. And hopefully once you go on to Menti, you'll see a little map asking you where you're from today. If I can get it to work, here we go. Right now. And I'll just move the screen across to Menti, and I can see lots of little blue dots coming up already. So that is wonderful to see where people are coming from today. It's great to see such a spread.
I think we're representing large chunks of the country here, Julie. It's amazing.
Yeah, I didn't know how this was going to work, Jamie, because it was only me and you that had tried it, so it only had 2 dots on it. That's great to see that. Amazing. And if anyone's struggling to access the Menti, just pop it in the chat and we'll try our best to help you out. Because there's different ways to access it if you're struggling.
I think this kind of highlights as well that obviously as CLDE practitioners, we're all over the country and we're all trying to work with young people, families, adults, communities, and it's good to see that representation is strong. And I think in activities like this, sometimes we don't really know where the representation is across the country. So hopefully a visual graphic like that hopefully makes you feel proud to be part of a discipline that's so well covered and so well represented across Scotland.
Yeah, that's great to see. It's a bit of a geography test as well, but I don't think anyone's in Dundee there, and I am, so I'll need to try and work out how to put a dot on for myself too. But that's great. Thank you so much for that. Morag, yeah, your phone screen should have the map on, hopefully, and it should give you a little pin. Oh, it won't let me click on submit. It's maybe just because there's a lot of people on it just now. It might come back to you in a minute. Hopefully it'll let you submit it in a minute or two. It's shown that there's a few more people getting on it now. There's 39 people getting on it at the moment, so it's maybe just our map's a little bit busy, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it did. It let me in and it let me click where I was, but now I've just got a slide saying wait for the presenter to show the next slide.
Oh, okay. That could be that your dot's gone on and then it's just getting you ready for the next activity.
Okay.
It could be that. We tried to make them all in one so that you only have to use the one access code. So hopefully,
Right.
Yeah, that's a really good prompt for me to remind you. Just you can keep that screen open if you've got it on your phone or your second device or whatever, because we'll just go back to that throughout and it should just kind of guide us through the activities. So I'm going to hand over to Una now to talk us through the purpose of the session today.
That's lovely, thank you. So obviously today's session is about evaluative writing, and quite simply we want you to go away skilled up to write evaluatively, feeling better able to report on outcomes and describe the impact of your work, and ultimately to be better able to communicate in writing to stakeholders about what you do and the difference it makes. And it's as simple as that. Can we have the next slide, please? So what the session will cover, we hope during the course of the next hour and a half or so, we'll cover the main things that you need to know. Very importantly, you'll have a chance to practice some of these skills and to discuss with others how to use them. And we'll share some resources that will help you to further develop your skills in the future. So we'll go through all of the things on that list there, and hopefully you'll find it an enjoyable and interactive session. Next slide.
Thank you, Una. So like I say, we're going to keep going back to our Menti, and hopefully once I move this on, you will be met with a question asking you what 3 words you would associate with evaluative writing. So hopefully that will pop up on your device now. And please do just shout at any time if there's an issue with it. This is the first time we're using our paid for Menti account, so it's a bit of a trial, but hopefully everything works okay. Please do shout if it doesn't. Can see some people coming on there, so that's fab. And if you've not seen a word cloud like this before, the more people that write the same word, the bigger the word gets. So it's Interesting now to see impact there from the start. That's becoming one of the bigger words there. And evidence, outcomes. That's fab, and we'll just give that a minute. Great to see people being able to access this. Also a bit of relief on our part as well. But wonderful to see all those words coming through there.
It's a really good visual way of showing like what people's thoughts are, and we use these kind of resources quite regularly when we deliver sessions to just make it a bit more engaging, because again, the visual impact of it is quite clear.
Yeah, and there's a few words there that are really interesting, and I really wanted that people to feel like they could put in any words there, and I see scary and pain and hard. And our hopes would obviously be by the end of the session that it doesn't feel so scary or so hard, and definitely hopefully not painful, and hopefully the session isn't painful either. But it's great that people have managed to kind of be honest and pop those opinions in there too.
Nobody seems to have put enjoyable yet.
That's great. Thank you very much for doing that. And I'm going to move the slide on, and hopefully yours will come up too with the next question, which is how confident do you feel with evaluative writing? And just like the previous question, everything's anonymous. It's not something that we're not going to all of a sudden ask John Smith to come in with why he scored himself a certain number. It's all anonymous, and it's just for us to kind of gauge the room and where we're at and where we're pitching our session today. And hopefully at the end it will have increased. And that's perfect. If you can't get the Menti to work, just pop a number in the chat there. That's great. Thank you. And we're sitting right bang in the middle at 5. With 40 people on filling that out, so that's great. Give that a second.
I suppose that just coincides with the word scary, because it is one of these things that to have confidence in doing. It has got that little bit of a fear factor to it, and how to do it in a certain way, and how to make sure it's going to have the impact you want. So that 5 sort of reflects that in a lot of ways.
Can I just ask, Julie, the shadow in the background, is that the sort of range of responses? Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll show us how many people have put which number. So it shows a majority are sitting around 5.
Interesting.
Yeah, I actually didn't know it did that, Una, so that is really interesting. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to come back to our slideshow. She said, hopefully. There we are. Okay, so that's great, and we've done the scale question too, so that's fab, and thank you very much for your participation in those activities. We thought, you know, it would be interesting looking at the words that were in the word cloud, coming through there, to look at the dictionary definitions of the words statement, evaluative and evaluation. And we'll see there's lots of words similar to ones that were used in the word cloud there too. So we thought that was interesting to kind of highlight that. Yeah, and lots of words that didn't feature in our word cloud that do feature in the dictionary. And we would summarise all of this by saying that evaluation ultimately necessitates making leaps from data to judgment and from analysis to action. And hopefully as we go through this session today, that'll be a definition that we can kind of reflect on and come back to as we go through the activities. So Jamie, over to you.
Thanks, Julie. So self-evaluation is important in the context of evaluative writing, because it shows how CLD as a service is making a difference and having a meaningful impact. And what better way to do this, to ask practitioners that sit at the coalface to look at the work that they're doing and measure it. Let's not forget the elephant in the room, however, that surrounds self-evaluation, that it helps with inspection. So with Higio CLD 4 now being released, important to look at that self-evaluation aspect once again, and essentially how that impacts on the way we record information. So first and foremost, what is self-evaluation? Just to kind of clarify, is a process of review and action applied to the chosen area of activity. Simply put, you look at what you're doing, you see how it's going, and you see what you're going to do next. It also aims to establish the strengths of an activity and identify actions that will bring about improvement. A place to highlight strengths that exist, and also notice improvements that need to be made. It's often a very honest part of self-evaluation, is noticing where things need to be improved upon, and that's a key word when it comes to self-evaluation, honesty. Self-evaluation also draws on the widest possible range of evaluative materials as evidence in order to see the quality of a piece of work from a variety of perspectives. So this can be from management information systems, session recordings, impact statements, evaluations, but also wider strategic documents, so CLD plans, local outcome improvement plans, community planning partnerships. All these aspects are where that evidence can be drawn from. And essentially capturing a picture to support this process depends on the quality of the thinking and writing. Skills to be developed. This resource aims to allow us to understand this and strengthen the importance of the aspect of our work. This is where evaluative writing is useful, as it allows a picture to be painted clearly around the big statement, so what? Next slide, please, Julie. So, looking at evaluative writing has many uses beyond just self-evaluation, and it can help inform the impact of the practice. So I think it's quite key to highlight that we're not just doing this session today to talk about how if you do a self-evaluation document for your service or discipline, it's not just about that, it's about how you use it in day-to-day running of your activities and the work that you deliver upon. Commonly, descriptive writing is often done when it comes to a session recording, project evaluation and reports. This means that the so what element of the work solely relies on the data and often comes with these outputs. An ever-changing kind of landscape for CLD where elements have been moved to different parts of local authorities and parts of CLD sometimes shrink, it's important to highlight as often as possible the true impact of the work that CLD is doing. With in mind, some of the key elements of why evaluative writing is so useful are detailed here. So you can see things in regards to assist for improvement, provides a basis for planning, it demonstrates accountability, it reports on performance, records strengths and weaknesses, it improves decision making, and I think beyond just the decision making that happens within a CLD team, also the broader aspects in regards to officers, in regards to heads of education, in regards to elected members. Evaluative writing helps them make decisions because they understand the service clearer. So there's a range of things in regards to how it sort of looks there. Julie, would you like to add anything just in regards to how it looks as well?
Yeah, probably something for me is about capturing that picture of how we're doing. So when we were looking at this session and planning this session, it made me kind of think back to in my last role when we were looking at a piece of evaluative writing on an outdoor learning project. The main part of that project was working with young people who were experiencing anxieties around school. So when we were evaluating that project, we were looking at pulling together information from school, information from the outdoor learning instructor, and information from myself in terms of the health and well-being. And it was important when writing that document that we were capturing that picture, because that was then going back to the funders of the project who weren't necessarily from our CLD background. So it was to give that kind of accurate picture of the impact of the programme, but also where we could go next and kind of justifying why perhaps more funding was required. I think that was an important part for me, to give that full picture.
Thanks, Julie. For myself personally, I can remember of times when running local youth groups in different areas, And essentially these youth groups and the sort of impact they made beyond just young people turning up and participating. Evaluative statements helped, again, locally elected officials, councillors, members of the Scottish Parliament who visited that particular group. They understood the impact because they could see the judgment that had been made. And again, that evidence that was taken, it was taken from the young people's views, from parents' views, from attendance, from how that contributed to the wider plans and aspirations of the area. So having that sort of influence in a couple of statements is quite a powerful thing. Next slide, Julie. So now we can kind of see why the usefulness around evaluative writing. It's important to see the key differences that exist between the different types of writings that exist out there. At some point, all practitioners would have done all of these types of writing in different settings. However, using the correct style of writing for intended outcome is really quite important. So the first one, just to highlight, and I wanted to start with, was reflective writing, because as CLD practitioners, it's one that we know the best. Many of us would have went to college or uni, or still at uni in some cases, and remember keeping the reflective journal on placements. And on these placements, we would have put our thoughts down, our views down, our feelings down on what we had took part in and seen throughout each week. Sometimes even writing down views that were controversial or questioning of practice, unsure if even we should be writing it in the case of our placement supervisor, in case they wanted to read it and making the next 4 months of placement quite awkward. This type of writing, however, is very useful for working in the field, and often something we don't do as much when we're delivering practice on a day-to-day basis. Offers that sort of personal account of what has happened and what we think about it. In many ways, it helps us shape the way we grow as practitioners, but also helps us make sense of the work we do. This type of writing has a personal impact and helps us grow as CLD workers, and has a lot of value in that sense. When we look at descriptive writing, and suppose this is again one that we're quite used to doing, we can see how its key elements here mainly focus on providing information, offering contextualization, and the information that's provided. It demonstrates the key elements of whatever being described, but also explaining the who and the what involved. While this information is useful, it doesn't highlight the relationship between the information being described and any perceived difference it's making. It's simply a description. So the what part of the so what statement, that's the kind of main element of what's done in descriptive writing. Going beyond that, analytical writing, this type of writing analyses what's going on, given set of circumstances. It looks at the parts that are involved and highlights what they do. In many ways, analytical writing has similarities to evaluative writing. However, there are a few kind of differences. Analytical writing looks to break up what's been done into parts that can be understood by the reader. It's presenting an in-depth study of information, comparing and contrasting it. It looks at this information and asks the why and the how of what's going on, while also leading into an idea of proposing solutions to the information presented. Analytical writing is objective at its core. The kind of facts, the key elements, and what you're trying to show. In some ways, if you'd done reports or essay writing at uni, that kind of thing, that would be analytical, and that sort of compare-contrast element. And finally, evaluative, and unfortunately this is the tricky one, and it's a tricky one a lot of the time. However, it's the one that can be the most useful as well. The key difference in evaluative writing is it's involved in making a judgment, and it moves away from being objective. When you write an evaluative statement, you're specifically saying how good or how poor something was or is. You give value in any way that can be clearly understood by whoever's reading it, ensuring that they can see what difference is being made in a very specific way. This can involve drawing conclusions, making recommendations, and highlighting implications and viewpoints around pieces of work. It can also help people see the impact of something that is from different angles. This is particularly empowering, as often a barrier CLD faces is explaining what it is we do and what we do. So when you can assign value to something that can be understood by anyone, it shows the value in the service as well. The slide's quite small, sorry. I'll try, and one of the things with the slides is we'll make sure that they're all shared with everybody. And if it's a wee bit unclear, most of the stuff that I'm discussing highlights the key elements, but I think there's one or two slides where we're talking about particular words or particular statements that might look a wee bit small, and we'll try and make sure that they're seen clearly. So looking at evaluative writing, how is this done? Well, in many ways, other type of writing helps inform evaluative writing. And if we move on to the next slide, we can see this. So here we see a model by John Hilston from the University of Plymouth that describes that analysis clearly linking into evaluation. By highlighting the what, when and who and where of what is going on, it creates a foundation of information that can be built upon. Next, we can look at the why did this thing happen and how did it happen to conclude a bit of analysis. Finally, this feeds into the so what part and allows surrounding questions around what if and what next. Evaluative writing can be done from any information, any topic. However, when first practicing it, it's useful to start from where many of us feel already confident, which is description and analysis. Today, we'll be using that approach to attempt evaluative writing and practice it. Before we look at some of the key parts of writing good evaluative statements and how to structure them, we must firstly understand the importance of information we are collecting and the context in which we are writing it. Okay, I'm going to pass to Una now. I'm going to just go to the next slide.
Thanks, Jamie. So thinking about the data that you gather and reporting coherently, it's vital to assess the impact that you make through your work. To help with this, organisations and individuals need to collect the right monitoring information and report clearly and effectively on their findings. See below some effective things to consider. So the first one, collecting good data. So many reports fail because their data is poor, or maybe there's just too much of it. Collect the data on what you're actually doing and include your outcomes that are negative as well as positive or unsure. When you've got some of that data, what do you do with it? You need to analyse it. You need to spend time becoming familiar with the data, know it inside out and make the most of it. Analyse the information for your readers and avoid presenting lots of raw data that they'll struggle to read and make sense of. You need to interpret it. Think about what those findings mean. Try to explain how your project works, for whom and in what circumstances. Link the outcomes to what was delivered, including how it was delivered, the process. Don't overclaim. Stick to what you know was an outcome from the work that you were doing. Be careful about assuming that what you did made a change or that no one else was involved in that change and it was totally down to you. That's really important in partnership work settings. You need to make simple, meaningful recommendations. So be careful that your recommendations flow from the data. Make recommendations collaboratively with evaluation users where possible and appropriate. You need to present these findings logically. So a common format for that would be starting with headlines, then going on to background, what was delivered, that's your outputs, what happened as a result, the outcomes, what that means, and what to do next, your recommendations. And I know it sounds so obvious, but you do need to write with the evaluation users in mind. Write with relevance for them and know why you're writing. Provide what's needed for them to be able to make good decisions, and don't include what's not necessary. Write in plain English, short and to the point. Very hard to do, but be honest. Make those findings clear, transparent and easily accessible. It is okay to include what didn't work and what you learnt from it. It can be a huge source of learning for yourself and for other people as well. And then finally, maximise use. Help the evaluation users feel a sense of ownership of the process and report. Share your findings along the way if appropriate. You don't always need to wait for the final report. Good timing of the final report helps. Make sure that it's ready in time for relevant decision making or deadlines. And those recommendations have been drawn from the NCVO site, and the web address is included in the slides that you'll get after this session. So can I have the next slide? Thank you. So the context will always affect what and how you write. So you'll need to consider why you're writing. Are you, for instance, writing to persuade your boss that you've done a good job? Or maybe you're trying to provide constructive feedback to a colleague. Who's the audience? Are you writing for community-based youth group? Are you writing for funders? Are you writing for the local media? It's going to look different in every case, isn't it? And what do you want the content to do? Are you writing to encourage people to join a community organisation because it's had such amazing results? Or are you trying to help a commissioning group decide which organisations will continue to receive funding next year? Completely different set of writing skills. Can we go on to the next slide, please? So we've put up there some examples of statements that have one word or a short phrase added to them that turn the statement into an evaluative statement. It's amazing how much difference just one word can make. So if we take the first sentence, tutors monitored the progress of learners. That's a statement, but it doesn't tell us anything about how good it was. But once you put well at the end of that, then you're making that evaluative judgment and your reader can see, they've ticked that box, that's something that's done. I wonder what would happen if it said something like, tutors rarely monitored the progress of learners. Well, you could think of another word to put in at the end there, couldn't you? You'll see a range of words highlighted there, and we'll come on in later slides to some of the words you might want to have in your toolkit for making those evaluative judgments. Next slide, please.
Back to myself, I think. So with those statements in mind, it's important to highlight some of the key parts that make them evaluative. When you think about evaluative statements, they're more direct in evaluative writing, so there's more of a punch to them. It cuts to the chase. It doesn't really float around. You can read that statement and you know exactly why it's good. There's examples of clear evidence that are given in this type of writing. So the types of words that are used highlight how well something is done. It's clear why it's good or bad. And I think, like Una was saying there, regardless of the kind of people that read it and the sort of people that you want to read it, they can understand completely if it's good or bad. Specific terminology that is quantifiable, words like wider, cluster, etc. If you're referring to a learning community or an area of SIMD, also if you're talking about a number of people, it's all or most, a lot, etc. It's good to clearly understand how the information you're saying can be quantifiable in numbers. We'll talk about that a wee bit later in regards to how you make those statements and make numbers relate to words. No jargon or acronyms. In a world of like CLD and local authorities, etc., there's a lot of acronyms that get thrown about, but elements like this make a statement sound more confusing, often taking the reader away from what your impact is because they're spending a lot of time trying to figure out what the acronym is. And no overly used adjectives. For example, if I said the incredibly organised and technically detailed, contrasting, useful slide, kind of overwhelms you, a lot of words there, compared to just useful slide. You can see the difference there, and something that's short or concise that uses one single adjective there and highlights the impact more than using lots of adjectives. And also being present in the tense that's used. Using past tense often leans into description, like who and what and where, whereas using a present tense, you're saying what impact it's having and how it's doing that. For example, my cup of tea was very enjoyable and lovely and warm, versus the tea made a valuable contribution to my well-being. You can see there's a bit of a stretch there, I suppose, saying that tea helps with my well-being, but you can see the point there of leaning into the present tense more than the past. Finally, it's important to highlight the evaluative writing that is more difficult than the descriptive. It requires that sort of critical thinking and constantly asking the so what part. It needs to be practiced, but implementing it into your work means that you'll get better at it with time. So the more you do it, the easier it becomes. To make it easier, there are a range of keywords and phrases that are often used by HMIE and also CLD leaders. Again, sorry if this slide's a wee bit small, and it'll be something we send out to you so you've got an access to this. These words here are evaluative words that can be oftenly used. The term up there, crib sheet, I was speaking to Julia about this earlier and I didn't know what crib meant. I would always say associate a crib with like a baby crib, but apparently crib means like, you know, a sheet that can be used as a quick access or a cheat sheet. So this is your cheat sheet in regards to evaluative writing. There were some of the words that could be picked up and used specifically to kind of make more evaluative statements. So some words there that have the greatest impact, if you were to say something was valid or well planned, something that had skillful elements to it or well balanced, it was positive, extensive, it was significant. But again, if something wasn't too good, then it was disappointing or inappropriate, unfavourable, insufficient. And if you read any HMI reports for any areas in regards to CLD, you'll see these are a lot of the kind of words that they would use while evaluating sort of the service within a particular learning community or authority. So understanding that language helps you get an idea, even if you're reading a report, how good a service is and its different sort of indicators. Next slide. So even with using those kind of words, it's important to avoid contradiction and avoid ambiguity. And to give you a little example of that, don't write something that can be ambiguous, rephrase it if possible. So if I was looking at a statement there, we prepared a leaflet for parents and attendance on the Solihull parenting programme. What does that mean? How does it really show us any impact? It's just a statement. It doesn't say what the impact does. But if we rephrased it slightly, we have identified that most parents were unaware of the impact of non-attendance in the programme. This led to the creation of a leaflet for parents that had positively impacted on attendance rate for the participants who were missing sessions within the group. So again, a couple of key words there that show you the impact. Things like positively impacted and attendance rate. These kind of things show the difference that's been made when it comes to the leaflet that's been created. So it's just a wee simple example there. Next slide. Another key feature is to write, when you're writing evaluatively, is to make sure it's often clear and easy to understand. Again, trying to make sure what you're trying to describe and qualifying your statement. Another little example that shows this, if I say the home link worker has established links with parents and carers, again, so what difference does those links make? But if I change it to make it more evaluative and say very good links or limited links, it gives you as an audience a clearer understanding of why that's important and why these links are important that's been made. And again, young people were informed about their progress. Again, so what? Well, if they're regularly informed, it shows the continuity of what's been done with them, or well informed, it means that they're being consulted and their views are being taken on board and their information is being shared with them in a manner that's making a difference. Next slide. Thank you. So you have to choose the correct evaluative word in order to make the quality or impact clear. So if I say staff planned conscientiously, but that doesn't really show the impact there, it just shows that the thought was given, but it doesn't show the plans were good or they were very good or they were poor. So again, making sure the word highlights the impact and the so what. And you don't always need an evaluative word to kind of qualify the impact of what's going on. If we were looking at a statement there where children are independent, friendly, polite and responsible, the nature of those words themselves highlight impact because it shows the difference that's been made, it shows why it's important, it shows the impact. And again, children were able to explain why they used different clothing in different types of weather. A simple statement again, but the fact that they could show reasoning behind what they're choosing to do shows the impact in that sort of statement as well. So it doesn't always have to involve one of those particular words. It can be just the intent of why it's good is clear to the reader to understand. And again, one of the things when it comes to all these sort of statements is you're imagining someone picking it up, reading it and going, I know why that's good, or I know why that's not very good. And that's the kind of main message, the so what element. Next slide, please, Julie. So again, apologies if it's too small there. Some additional words that we'll be sharing. And again, ones that kind of highlight that sort of evaluative element. So things, simple words like well and less well, poor or poorer, quality, etc. They've got bigger words such as comprehensive, secure, weakness, strength, effective. All these words, if you put them in the context of a statement, would highlight the sort of importance of what's going on and ultimately the impact that it's making. They show real evaluative statements being created, and again, these will be some of the words that we share with everybody here that they can use to kind of structure evaluative statements when they're kind of going forward. I don't know if there's anything else that anybody from the team would like to ask and add in there in regards to those sort of statements. No, fine. Okay. So I'm just going to pass, I'm just going to let this last slide here, sorry. If you look at, for example, a way those words might be used, if you look at the first statement, young people have performed well in examinations. This is something, again, that would be used in a school context. It highlights how they've performed and why that is important. And then again, an opposite to that, the establishment or setting had implemented plans improvements too slowly. So it can always be done after the fact, after the verb, but it can also be done the other way as well and before the verb to kind of highlight and emphasise what's been said. So the establishment has successfully involved a wide range of community organisations, or staff accurately identified the key priorities for improvement. And again, you would have to have obviously the evidence to back up what's been said here. So how can you show that the successfully involved a wide range of community organisations? Well, you would say that the range of people that turned up for a consultation, the fact that people contribute to a plan, such as a local CLD plan or planning group, these would be evidence that would prove that. But the statement itself is the thing that's read that shows the real evaluative element and the impact of the work that's been done. Next slide.
Thanks, Jamie. So we're going to go into breakout rooms in a moment and do a wee activity that we've popped onto a Jamboard. Hopefully there'll be one person in each room that can access the Jamboard. And it's just so that you can see the statements throughout while you're chatting. We figured that was probably the easiest way, but we can also paste them into the chat pane while you're in your breakout rooms as well, hopefully for ease of access to the statements. So we're going to have a wee practice of evaluative writing in our breakout rooms, and we have 3 descriptive statements on a Jamboard. Actually, if I move on one, you'll be able to see the statements there, hopefully. Yeah, so we've got these 3 statements, and what we're looking to do in our breakout rooms is hopefully translate them to be a bit more evaluative. And like I say, these are on a Jamboard that you will have access to. So if one person in each room could either pop feedback onto the Jamboard, or if you feel comfortable just popping your hand up when we come back together and we can just have a chat through what people's thoughts are on this activity and making the statements a bit more evaluative. So we thought while you're in your breakout rooms, people might want a wee break as well. So just feel free to decide between yourselves if you want to have a little break first and then come back together to discuss it, or whether you want to discuss it first and then have a wee break before we all come back together. We just thought it might be a prime time for people to grab a water or a cup of tea. So I will just pop a link to the Jamboard in the chat now, and please do stick your hand up if you've got any questions or anything like that while I do this.
So just to kind of continue on from what Julie's saying there, there's no perfect answer to these statements. It's not like if you're going and you're creating the evaluative statement that it needs to be done a particular way. It's, again, a very judgmental thing. You're making a judgment about how you can make this statement more evaluative. So again, someone can pick up, and if they're saying, so what, they can read it and go, oh, that's why, and it can be understood. And again, it's good to start from these descriptive statements because this is what we kind of commonly know. And because there's 3 statements there, you don't have to do all 3. So for example, if your main discipline is youth work or adult learning or community work or family work, you can prioritise. So we ask each of the groups if you want to attempt 1 or you can attempt all 3. That's absolutely fine. We're happy for you to just do whatever you feel most comfortable with. And when we're going to each room, can you maybe potentially introduce each other? So again, it makes it more comfortable. And like Julie said, if someone can take wee notes or maybe even write out the statement and just type it up in a document if you hand it, or just write it out by hand. And again, when we come back, some feedback would be good for the groups, but we'll also give feedbacks as well. And this sort of feedback we'll give is how ourselves at Education Scotland, how our HMI colleagues, and how us as a consortium training group here would look at those statements and measure them as being evaluative. Again, there's no perfect answer, and I think that's something when it comes to the scary element of evaluative writing, try and not look at it as something that needs to be a particular way. It's just, it has to show the impact that's been made. So don't try and stress about it too much.
Thank you. Hopefully you will win your way into a breakout room soon. And we thought if we could come back together at 3:10, that would give 20 minutes. So roughly 15 minutes discussion, a wee 5-minute break, but just decide between yourselves and your groups. There'll probably be 4 or 5 people in each room. And I'm just going to press that button now, so I'm not sure how long it'll give me before it starts winging people away to their breakout rooms, but we'll see you back here at 3:10.
There's a problem with the Jamboard.
Is there? Right, okay. Is it just not letting you write on it?
No, it's saying it needs to enable WebGL before you can access it. I can see it in the small version, but not in the big version. I don't know if anybody else has the same problem.
As long as one person can see it, it's just, it gives the statements themselves, but at the same time, some of the kind of words that we've already mentioned. So as long as one person can access it, that kind of helps. And again, that's kind of the way it looks essentially. So as long as one person within each room can utilise it, that'll be fine.
It looks like there's about 30 people managed to get on, so hopefully you're in a group with somebody who is in it. And then we can just take it from there and just get one person to facilitate or write up some notes or just kind of summarise your discussions. That would be fab. Okay, so I'm just going to open those rooms now. So thank you very much, and we'll see you back here at 3:10.
Thank you.
And we were just getting to the point of having the perfect paragraph. Katie had just about nailed it, hadn't you?
Oh,
Fantastic. Thank you very much for putting up with all those technical difficulties there. We were just talking about how if we were in person and we had a flip chart and post-it note, things would be quite a lot simpler than they are trying to use Jamboards and all sorts. So I know a couple of people couldn't manage to get on the Jamboard, and that is absolutely okay. Just trying to adapt to the digital world still, but sometimes it doesn't always go to plan.
I thought it was only me.
No, it definitely wasn't only you. It was a bit of a chaotic Jamboard situation, but hopefully people still got some
chat anyhow.
Yeah, that's good. Get some good discussion and meet new people and
Yeah.
look at the statement. So that's fab. So we are going to move on just to a wee bit of discussion. Hopefully if folks feel comfortable just popping their virtual hand up or popping things in the chat, that would be great. Una, I know if you had a paragraph ready, you could kick us off from your group, but just please do feel free. We want this to just be as relaxed discussion as possible, so thank you.
Well, I've fallen victim to what Jamie was warning us about earlier about overclaiming. We perhaps didn't quite have that paragraph ready, but we looked at number 2, so the adult literacy group. My goodness, that was a well-performing adult literacy group. We thought that looked fantastic, but it's very hard to succinctly describe it. But we were talking about there was obviously a positive impact on adult literacy learners and on their day-to-day lives. And we then came up at the end with all learners are improving their confidence and well-being. We didn't tackle the SQA accreditation, which in some cases, in some senses, speaks for itself. But Katie and Shingai and Claire, was there anything else you would add?
Well, we kind of wondered, it said there was 90% that felt they had improved things, but it didn't tell you why the other 10% didn't feel they had improved.
So always looking for where's the edge of improvement, where can we go next? So God, it must work you hard in East Lothian, Katie.
I think that's some really good points, though. It offers the clear impact of what's the difference is, and using some of the words to highlight that difference. But again, using that statement on the flip side of, oh, how can we support that other 10% in regards to their learning? So that's really good. Is there any other groups that would like to either, if they've taken notes, put how they've translated one of them and put it into the chat, or just feedback verbally? Morag, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I was with Hannah from Lewis, and I'm from Edinburgh. There was just 2 of us in our group. And we kind of just took the task really literally. We looked at the actual the sentence, and we just put in evaluative words. So maybe we didn't kind of read into too much about what we were reading. So, for instance, for the first one, number 1, we did, what did we have for that one? The employability. The Employability Hub currently provides a suitable range of activities that support young people from not in employment education to progress quickly to successful destinations. Sessions develop comprehensive CV writing skills and show young people how to work effectively with others and give them wider qualifications. And then the last sentence was, after some time, participants move into constructive training, college or work opportunities.
Yeah, that's a really good...
just lifting the words, I suppose, from that Jamboard. I couldn't work out how to put anything on the Jamboard, so we just kind of scribbled things down, Hannah and I.
Yeah, that's perfect, and I think in some ways that's how an evaluative statement can be taken, and I think that's some of the fear is that you need to do a completely new statement when you don't really. You need to just look at the statement that's already been written and then how to make it more evaluative that shows the impact. So the kind of things that you were saying there, Morag, is very much like it's clear why the impact's been made by some of the words that were used there, and obviously there'd be evidence to back it up.
Yeah, that would be the tricky one.
Yeah, but even some things, it's like we've said about evaluative writing, it's about the judgment that's been made. So about saying the judgment in regards to the type of skills that's been delivered or developed by the young people. That judgment is based on how you see they've used that skills, the skills in practice, and how confident they feel. Maybe if they've done an evaluation and say, I feel much better at writing CVs now than I did before, you can make that judgment and use that word.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't always need to be a brand new statement. So that's really good. Really good statement to make. Excellent. Does any other group want to particularly feedback, either verbally or just in the chat? So I'm just reading Anton here. Statement 3, effective training in committee skills and constitution writing for any town tenants and residents has led them to be more effective making decisions on the local community forum. Yeah, that's quite, I think one of the things you've done there, Antoine, that's quite good, is you've taken a longer statement and made it more concise. So like we were saying in the previous slide, you've made it more concise, it's more to the point, and to read that, you say, well, so what if they've taken part in committee skills? Well, it's made them better at making decisions in their community forum, so it's clear how the skills have helped them. So it doesn't always need to be keeping the full statement, it can always be reducing it and making it more punchy, as we kind of highlighted before. We've seen who has their hand up. Paul, do you want to come in?
Yeah, so we added in the first one, currently provide, sorry, I've written this down, well-planned activities, so, just emphasizing that. And sessions develop effective CV writing skills, and then so we just added these words in, and then the last one was, after some time, participants move into sustained training, college or work opportunities.
Yeah, that's really good. And again, see the element of effective CV writing skills. How was it effective and why was it effective? Well,
Yeah.
they moved in to opportunities. So obviously the CVs that they've wrote have led to jobs. And the sustained element kind of highlights, well, how could you measure that, improve that? Well, we did a follow-up call like 6 weeks, 8 weeks later to these young people. Were they still in that getting ready for work program? Were they still in that sort of apprenticeship scheme? Were they still there? Yes, they were. So that's the proof that they've sustained it. So you can see.
Yeah, you would need to add a little bit more, as you said, to that, but you'd still be focusing a little bit, is what we thought.
Yeah, excellent, brilliant. Any other groups that want to give just one maybe final wee feedback if anybody wants to do it? No. Oh. Pam, do you want to come in?
I don't want to give feedback because I haven't got the notes, but we did look at the first statement and say that depending on who you were writing this for, you need to look at your your acronyms or your abbreviations, because some people might not know what NEAT is. And is HUB an acronym, or is it just an abbreviation, or why is it in capitals? That would assume it is an acronym and nobody know what it is. So it's how you write it to make sure it addresses your audience, basically.
Absolutely. I was hoping somebody would pick up on that wee acronym in there. So to make that more evaluative, you would get rid of it. Basically, you would make it more clear in the sense of that somebody that picks that up, a member of the public or someone within like a locally elected official that's not quite up to speed, what that means. They would look at NEAT and then impact is lost because they're too busy focusing on what NEAT means. So yeah, really good point. And one final wee input there, Joanne, do you want to come in?
We just had a wee bit of a conversation about the numbers of young people and participants on the thing as well, because sometimes that gives a big difference as to your 90% and your 10% and all that, because we're saying how many participants would really be in a local adult literacy group. So we said, maximum probably 10 or something like that. So actually your 90% is 9 and the 10% is really only one person. So it's just about using the percentages with smaller numbers. It's sometimes something to think about.
Yeah, and one of the things that we're going to highlight as well, just in the kind of latter elements of this presentation, is how instead of using the numbers, you can use words to highlight that, again, doesn't inflate, because 90% suggests, whoa, that's a lot of people, but you're right, a literacy group wouldn't be that many people at all, but you can use other words like almost all or mostly, that again highlights the quantity of the participants involved that feel that way, but at the same time doesn't sort of take away or distract from the meaning behind it because there's a big number there. So yeah, it's a really good point as well. Thanks very much, everybody. That was really good feedback, and I think it's something that highlights the kind of the thought process that goes from descriptive to evaluative. And I think for most people here, having that descriptive starting point is always a good place to begin, and to build into evaluative. That helps you sort of train yourself and get in practice and used to writing evaluative statements. And ultimately, as you get more accustomed to doing it, you can do it more naturally. What we're going to do now is show you how an HMIE inspector would translate that. So one of our colleagues that works in Education Scotland, she translated these statements into more evaluative statements. So the first one there, you can see how she did it there, and basically kind of similar to what other people have said, providing good opportunities to decrease the amount of young people in negative destinations, again taking away from the NEAT element there. Comprehensive sessions are provided to increase employability skills of participants. So what she's done there is she's again highlighted the sessions element, so as some other people have done as well, but instead of breaking it down into the individual elements of CV writing, etc., she's grouped them together into employability skills. So just making it more concise, and that's how she would have done it. This leads to a consistent transition into meaningful opportunities within education, training and employment. So again, all the three bits that were part of that original statement, but just worded slightly that kind of highlight the impact behind it. And to be honest, most of the groups that fed back in that particular example demonstrated the same sort of structure, looking at the keywords that were used and trying to make it a bit more concise and why there was an impact in the statement that was being made. Go on to the next one, if you want to do that, Julie.
Yeah, if I can get it to move over. So for the second statement, our colleagues did similar and wrote an evaluative statement, and they summarised that there is an increased level of confidence held within the adults in the literacy group. Participants are very good at applying their learning to their lives in a cohesive way. Almost all participants achieved an SQA award by taking part. And this project also demonstrated a highly effective impact on the well-being of those attending. So just similar to what Jamie was saying there, you can see where those words that were on the crib sheet earlier, you can see how they come into effect in those sentences, and they really shape each sentence and change the kind of impact in the language that's used. So that's number 2. And number 3.
So number 3, again, like some of you have already said, the colleagues here managed to reduce this in size and have used some very strong evaluative words here. So the tenants and residents group have made robust improvements by contributing to local decision making. Well thought out skills development opportunities have also been achieved for its members. This aids them to operate more effectively as a committee. And I really like the way that cuts through quite a lot of words from the left-hand side and very concisely expresses real improvement that's having an impact.
I think some of you may be looking at those statements and be saying, well, there is a bit of a change between the two, but you've got to remember that's coming from an HMI inspector who's been doing this for many years, so it becomes natural to them. A lot of the examples that were given by colleagues in this session took words and added words in, and that's okay as well. It's not to say that this is the way it should be done in regards to like translating it that perfect way. If you do it in such a way that makes it more evaluative, it's still an evaluative statement. And as you get more accustomed to it, you naturally start to write that way because you're thinking, I'm writing a piece of information here, so what? And then you start to change the way you write it. So our HMI colleague, she's basically doing that information and translating it to how she would write it. So it's just to give you an idea and a flavour of the kind of way they would do it. But everybody else, the kind of feedback we had, that was evaluative in its kind of context and how it was being delivered as well by the words that were used and by making it more punchy. And when you look at the sort of the kind of key differences again and how it's sort of compared, if you look at that top example there, there are plans to develop a community garden area alongside the cooking kitchen as part of an approach to family learning. The Imaginarium area, which provides opportunities for play exploration, is used weekly in the junior and senior group sessions. Again, a very descriptive statement there. But again, this is an example from training that HMI do. They would take that and they would slightly tweak it in a more kind of clear way that's less like the other ones. And all they've done is say there's well-judged plans to develop the centre's garden, and the same sort of statement in regards to family learning. And then a little bit at the end in the second sentence, the Imaginarium provides relevant, interesting opportunities. So again, the impact here, they're relevant because they're relevant to the young people and they're interesting because they're engaging, and this helps the children develop their creativity skills by exploring resources and tools. So again, how are they relevant? Well, that's why, because they're exploring resources and they're using different tools. So it can be a lot more kind of clean cut like that, where the elements of the text are more highlighted through the opportunities, and an evaluative statement doesn't always need to be a big, huge thing that demonstrates impact over a large event or a project that takes a lot of time. It can be a statement that just highlights why something's valuable and clearly understood by anyone. And I think one of the things we were hoping to convey today is if you're doing like a session recording from a youth group or adult literacy group or a piece of adult learning or some sort of literacy work with families and schools, etc. When you do that sort of session recording, thinking about an evaluative statement at the end of it to see why it's made a difference, that's what we'd be kind of going for there. And again, to practice it, you could write it descriptive first and then simply translate it into evaluative. It's more than just using it for the big things. It's about the day-to-day practice, and putting that practice into place means that you get more accustomed and more used to it. And the hard bit of evaluative writing becomes a little bit easier. I'm passing to you, Diane, now.
Yeah, and carrying on from what Jamie's saying, this was shared by Education Scotland colleague as well about their hints and tips that sum up the core elements. So is the statement clear and straightforward? If you gave your piece of writing to a colleague, would they be able to tell the value of it? And then make sure there are no contradictions. So unlike sort of analytic writing where you would compare and contrast, you need to make sure that evaluatively that you keep to the point. Be direct in what wording is used. And again, it goes back to it being punchy, straightforward, concise. So the message is very much about kind of keep it simple, keep the sentences short, and be direct with that. Ensure that the evidence is clear. What is the context? Having a statement that highlights what's going on and why is useful. And here's reference to the numbers or the words that you can use. We've already kind of touched on this. So words that match numbers. If we refer to almost all, then you're meaning sort of 90% and over. Most, 75 to 89%, a majority, 50 to 74%, less than half, 15 to 49, and a few up to 15. This is what Education Scotland use, so it's kind of useful reference if you're, when you're writing to, perhaps kind of keep to, the numbers and the wording as well, and you can use either for that. And back to the all-important so what question. So if you have written something and you can't answer the question, the so what question, then perhaps you need to go back and tweak it slightly and use your colleagues as well. Use other people who are around that you're working with. Give them the statement and say to them, well, what do you make of that? And support each other with your writing, because as Jamie was saying, it is about practice as well. And obviously the Education Scotland colleague has been doing this for a long time and has obviously been doing it. But when you're getting started, use each other as well and help each other with your writing. The only other thing that is not probably on this list, which was referred to earlier, is also the tense that you're writing in, and sort of writing in the present tense as well is probably quite key when you're doing writing evaluatively. So I think that's me. Julie, I think I'm passing back to you.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much. So we're going to go back to our earlier Menti. I'm really getting my money's worth this session with the Mentimeter folks, okay? So we're going back over to Menti for another activity here. And we have 3 statements that will come up each in a row. So let me just move back over to that. And we'll get back over here and hopefully you'll get the first statement coming up on your screen now. And the first statement is young people are engaging in a wide range of volunteering opportunities within the learning community, and this is developing their skills. And hopefully you'll get a little voting box as to whether you think this is descriptive or evaluative. So I'll give that.
Can you just show us the QR code again, please, for Menti?
Yeah, of course. There it is there. Is that okay?
Thank you, yeah.
No worries, perfect. Okay, that's great. We can see some answers coming in there. Maybe if we were doing this in person, we could do it running to the other side of the room for evaluative and descriptive. Getting the ideas for when we can be back in person. I'll give that a wee minute. There's still people getting into it, so a minute for your voting. It seems to have slowed down now. So yeah, we can see there's an overwhelming majority there on descriptive, and that is a descriptive statement, that one for number 1. Hopefully now you will move on to question 2. And it's cut off some of the word in there. That should be it now. So question 2, the statement is, the data provided by the school on achievement of a level is not reliable. Assessment evidence that underpins teachers' professional judgments is not sufficiently robust. And hopefully you'll get that same voting option again. I must have run out of characters that it didn't let me finish my sentence there. See the numbers creeping up again. That's great. See people are accessing that. That's fab. There we go. So this statement here is evaluative, and we can see the overwhelming majority there have gone evaluative in their votes. And this one is evaluative because a judgment's being made by the person who's writing it. They're using their data to make a judgment on the school and saying that achievement is not reliable and that the professional judgment is not sufficiently robust. So they're using those words that were in the crib sheet earlier, the words used by Rich and my colleagues as well, around making a judgment. So what that data is telling you and what you're concluding from that. And our last statement, hopefully, lucky number 3, here we go. Statement 3 is the main focus for pupil equity funding, PEF, spending, is enhancing the learning environment. A family learning worker is employed using PEF to support targeted interventions. I'll give you a minute to get on that one.
I think there's a little bit of a clue with that one with the acronym in it in regards to what it is.
Yeah, I know.
And I think like Julie said there, it's about, is there a judgment being made? And that's the sort of premise of if it's descriptive or evaluative. Is it just a description of what's happening, or is someone that's writing that making a judgment on the information that's been provided?
That seems to be our votes slowing down now. And that one is descriptive too, because it's just describing what the PEF money is being spent on. So we don't know the impact of that in terms of the family learning worker or the impact on the learning environment. So that one is descriptive too.
Can I just come in for a minute on that one, Julie? Because I think that was really interesting, because you see that enhancing the learning environment and you sort of think, oh, that's evaluative. But actually, you know, they've maybe got some nice cushions and painted the walls in the learning environment, and that's fantastic. But as you said, is it enhancing the impacts for the children and young people that are supposed to be benefiting from this? And we're not seeing that, are we?
Yeah.
So,
and I think sometimes that's the hard part about CLD. Like I thought that so many times when I've been doing something, like it could be a holiday programme and you start it and you've got the funding and then you think, wait, how am I actually showing the impact? You know, yeah, we can say we've met with these young people, this is what we've done, we visited the ice rink and here, here and here. But it's actually that last bit, isn't it, that's the evaluative bit of showing what the true impact is, and I think that's where the wording comes in. It's kind of so important, isn't it?
yeah.
All about that so what, the so what statement.
Yeah.
Okay. So I did tell you I'm getting my money's worth out the Menti, so we're going to stay on it, okay? We're coming to wrapping up this session today. Thank you very much for staying with us. I know 2 hours can be a long time to sit online at any type of session, so thank you very much. Hopefully it's not been too painful. I'm thinking about that word cloud from earlier. Hopefully it's not been too painful. And I don't think fun was in the word cloud, but I hope maybe it's been a little bit fun. So we're going to think about how we use these skills next, and hopefully you'll have a little speech bubble come up. And I know this is quite hard to do while you're still in the session, but I think it's good to just get a feel for what people are thinking around what next, what do we do with this, how do we take evaluative writing forward in our setting.
And again, it doesn't need to be a big element. It doesn't need to be something that's like year-end reports or quarterly reporting. It could be just in your day-to-day practice, how you hope to use it for sessions, how you want to demonstrate the impact of what we're doing to anybody really, to parents, to families, to schools, just the elements around that.
It's great to see people's thoughts coming in there.
Yeah. And some really good statements there, just in my day-to-day work and for report writing, again, yeah. And I think that's something that in practice, when it comes to the big scary element of having to do self-evaluation and preparation for inspection, if you've already been writing evaluative statements every time you do a session recording or a report for how something's went, then it's already there. There's no extra work that needs to be done because we're still having to do that sort of recording day to day of the work that we take part in. But if it's more evaluative, then it kind of ticks a lot of boxes in that sense. Improve the recording of our work. That's excellent. Yep.
That's great to see them coming in. I'll just keep
Yes, excellent.
The crib sheet will help. Yeah, that's great.
That's excellent.
That is great.
Yeah.
I think things like those crib sheets as well, they're handy to like print out and stick near your desk and things as well, aren't they? Just as wee helpful reminders. Stick it in the back of your diary or something. And I know I've ended up at home with loads of stuff stuck on the wall, but it's handy just for wee reminders as well.
Absolutely. There's some excellent statements, really good, and I think all of us are quite keen to see those sort of statements because that's what we're hoping for, that people use it in day-to-day and also in some of the other contexts as well, so that's really positive read. Morag, do you have a wee question before we move to the final part?
It's just when you're saying about the crib sheet and keeping it by your desk and keeping it handy. And I suppose the thing I need to, I want to take away from this as well is just about making sure you've got the evidence to kind of back up what you're saying, because having read many school reports, from children where teachers are using the same language all the time as if they're just copying from a crib sheet all the time, and about your child not being an individual, they start to feel like your child's a number because the same words are being used all the time. It's like that kind of joke about, the lottery game where you kind of keep using the same words. So I suppose there's just that kind of health warning about when you use the words, just make sure you can back it up properly and you're actually making the reader realise you're writing about real people and real instances. Otherwise it does become quite a bureaucratic read.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
I think it's about as well not having to feel like you have to collect every single bit of data ever known to man to justify a project. Sometimes I think we think, oh, we need this and we need that and we need 400 other things, and I think sometimes it's just about actually collecting a few key bits of something in terms of an evaluation tool or data management, and having that and then basing your judgments on that. I know my last post was based in a school, so there was so much around attendance and attainment that by the time you kind of got bogged down in all of that, whereas I was thinking, but I'm a health and wellbeing worker, so I need to do that bit. And I think it's about kind of whittling down what you need as well.
Mm-hmm.
Joanne, see you've got your hand up. Come in.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of say a wee bit more about that, because I think sometimes it's good to think about what end result you want and work back from that. So think about, what do the funders want to know? Like before you even start your project, like when you're doing your funding application or whatever, is thinking about what will they want to find out by the end, and ask those questions only, instead of asking like all these other questions that might not be relevant and then you've got too much information. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't change, because, as we know, things change throughout your programme, and you might have other things that come up and you go, well, that was a bit strange that came up, but let's write about that and see how we've learnt from that kind of thing. But I always feel like having the questions first really helps me to think about my day-to-day work and kind of almost be guided by that, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
It actually helps with participants as well, because sometimes if the question's too broad, they don't really know how to answer it either. Whereas if it's more focused on the key elements you want to ask them, they can either say yay or nay to that, or very much so, or not very much so. So it helps on both sides to kind of make any evaluation or any information gathering more clear for everybody.
Perfect, thank you very much. So I'm going to just move the Menti on again, and you should be met with the same scale and question that we did at the start. Hopefully that'll start coming up for you all.
Hopefully a little bit better as well. If it's down at 2, we've not done our job very well.
If it comes up a 3 or a 4, I'll just delete it.
Yeah.
I'm joking. It's great to see that bigger blue wave of people voting a bit higher up than the 5 that we started at. So that's good. Hopefully this is going to hit the mark.
And again, some of the information, obviously being a virtual presentation, for some people it might be that you need to read over the information we've provided and just digest it a little bit more, and hopefully after the session's done, you can share that with yourselves alongside all the kind of resources that we've talked about, and that'll help anybody that's maybe feel like they've only learned a little bit. That'll help them grow that sort of confidence, because it's confidence building, and some of it's about reading on for the information again, and some of it's about just practicing it day to day. And like Una said about kind of supporting each other, and Diane said about supporting each other and sharing ideas. So if you have colleagues and you want to ask them, is this evaluative? Can you tell me the impact of the so what of this? If they can, you're doing well.
Can I just add in, I find it's much easier to look at someone else's writing and see if it's evaluative or descriptive. It's much harder when you're doing it yourself. You're too close to it. You know the project, you know what you're writing about. So as you say, Jamie, just getting someone else to look at your writing is absolutely invaluable.
Definitely. Joanne, I'm not sure if your hand went up there, but feel free to come in.
I did, but I was trying to just do like a thumbs up, but I pressed the wrong button.
Perfect, no worries. I didn't know when that thumbs up thing started on Teams. I didn't even know it existed until people started doing it in meetings, so that's fab. Thank you. Okay, so that's great to see everyone's managing to complete that. And like that, if you're struggling with a Menti, feel free to pop it in the chat to us at any time. And that takes us to the end of our Mentimeter, and I'll just nip back over to the PowerPoint just now. Okay, so we felt that sometimes when you come on a professional learning session and you go away and you get a evaluation form emailed out to you at a later date, it can be difficult to find time in your day to fill that out. So what we wanted to do was just give 5 or so minutes kind of time dedicated just now to filling out the evaluation form. Hopefully, oh, see Jamie's popped that in the chat there, so that's great. Hopefully that link works all right for you, and just like that, take a couple of minutes to fill it out, and we'd be very, very grateful for your feedback.
Okay, just to highlight the actual form itself says at the top of it, practice sharing for community learning development practitioners. So it's a general evaluation form. If you think, oh, have I clicked the wrong one here or is it the wrong one? So it's just a general. It does actually ask you, I think it's in question 5, what session you took part in. So if you just take a wee 5 minutes to fill in that, that'd be really helpful for all of us.
Yeah, the evaluation forms are being used for all the events, and the information will be all collated that way. So that's why it's the same evaluation form. It maybe looks a bit daunting. I think there's about 15 questions, but hopefully because it's an online form, it should be relatively quick to complete. And as I say, a big plea of please do complete it, because that'll help with feedback of delivery of future sessions, both evaluative writing sessions, but also looking at other sessions as well. So please do take a few minutes to do that. Thank you.
Just to say that the first question, I think you're meant to tick all 3, but it won't let you. I'm not sure if that's right or not. So you can only choose one.
Yeah, I can see that as well. Actually, that's a.
Yeah, so I am understanding all the other stuff as well, but I just can't tick them all.
Yeah. I would say then just that case, the top one to be selected as a sort of primary element, but I think we need to sort of flag that up.
Yeah, I'll feed that back to the person who created the form. Okay, thank you for that.
And always with these evaluations, the ticky box ones are the easy ones. It's the enter your answer ones that are the tricky ones. So but again, that provides the most information. So even a little sentence or a couple of words would really be helpful for us in regards to what we've delivered today, and obviously the kind of key elements and what's been good and what maybe we can improve on in future. And then also one of the last questions there, the last 2, if you remember the Standards Council, that'd be good to answer as well, because it's always something we're looking to promote across all aspects of CLD, but also the element of would you like further professional learning on, because sometimes the question in regards to what practitioners actually need, it's hard to really know that sometimes in regards to what you guys on the ground will really want to sort of learn more about. So be specific as you can with that, please. And if it's something that's maybe not even been considered before, or something that's not even been suggested, then that still helps, because especially for ourselves in Education Scotland, it helps us develop ideas and engage with partners and other colleagues to create things that are useful, because that's what we want to do, create learning that's useful for you to do your jobs and make you feel confident in doing that as well. Diane, do you just want to go into the final wee bits, and then if I've got any other
Yep.
final questions?
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, just a sort of thank you for participating and staying with us today. I hope you found the session useful. This is our contact details. If anybody's interested in finding out more about the work of the South East and Central Consortium, please do get in touch with myself directly. And that is all our email contacts if you want to get in touch about anything else. I just want to say a thank you to Jamie, Julie and Una for their inputs today. And without them, this wouldn't have happened. So thanks very much for that. And please do complete the evaluation. Can we move to the useful links?
Can I just check, Diane, Stephen had